you have IBS, struggling with it, this video is 100% for you. I've been working in the world of IBS now for a long time, and I've seen time and time again that the medical system isn't necessarily got all of the answers. I don't have all of the answers by far, but we can find out the answers together, as I've proven time and time again. But what I think is really interesting with this testimonial is Alex is a real person, as in she had quite the party lifestyle when she grew up. She was a very strong human being, that's for sure. She was a tree surgeon. And then through IBS and through lots of other issues with coming from the gut, she had bipolar, she just had insomnia, she had depression, she had all of these things, joint pain, everything that you could think of. When it comes to, celiac disease, just all these other crap. And if you go through it step by step with a practitioner and you understand what it is, it can take time for sure, but then you can be symptom-free for the rest of your life, whether that be through sleep, whether that be through recovery, whether that be through some skin conditions, whatever that may be. And I really want to make this as clear as possible that it is curable. IBS is not for life. And whether it's the previous testimonial with David or time with Alex, I think it's very important for us humans to understand we don't have to FODMAP, we don't have to avoid tons of food. We have to go to the base of the problem and build it up and then understand our food properly. And in that way, you can be completely symptom-free. You can clear your skin up. You can clear your headaches. You can clear so many different things if you stick to a plan and understand we just got to get it done. So here we go. I'm going to go through it with you guys. It does go on a bit, but if you have IBS, this is probably going to be the best video for you ever. So yeah, I want to try and be as real as possible because I know how serious this is in the industry with people telling you one thing and everything else. So let's just enjoy. Yeah, it's just fucking easy to edit. Anyway, so we'll get cracking, yeah?
Okay, yeah, let's go for it.
So just want to make it clear that we're recording this as a testimonial because we work together, Alex, and we've gone through quite a bit of time together, and just want to make sure you're happy with me putting this on social media so people can see it.
Yes, absolutely.
Legend. All right, cool. So this to me is a really amazing process because I've gone through many different clients before, but you were definitely one of the hardest puzzles to solve. And with this interview, I think it's probably going to be a little bit longer than most. So buckle up if you've got IBS and you're watching this. Then I think you'll probably be. This is kind of like the jokey side that me and Alex had because we have, I think I spoke to this girl probably every day for about a good 4 weeks, 5 weeks when we first started, just trying to solve many, many different things, which she talks about, but. We created such a friendship. I ended up working with her husband, with her mother-in-law, and it really is, I like to be able to do this because the friendships that I can bond through it, but also giving somebody their life back is the most amazing, amazing thing. To relate with at least one of the problems. So, Alex, if you could just explain who you are and why you got in touch with me.
So my name's Alex. I'm 40 years old. I've had IBS, I think probably since I was in my mid-20s. I used to do a lot of parties when I was younger, lots of raving, lots of drugs, lots of naughty things like that. And basically when I was in my mid-20s, I started getting all of these stomach problems. I started getting a lot of diarrhea, a lot of bloating, a lot of wind, a lot of just all of the sort of IBS problems that you get. Obviously, as I got older, I stopped being quite so wild, and I started wanting to, look after myself a little bit better. I got into fitness and running and the gym and CrossFit and all of that sort of thing. I found it very, very hard to lose weight. I constantly had a big fat bloated stomach. I had zero energy. I had tried so many diets along the way, including keto. I was basically starving myself half to death, and then because I'd been hungry for such a long time, I'd then binge eat, and yeah, just all of those sorts of problems. And then I think it was about 7 months ago or so, I was speaking to a friend at the gym about all of the problems that I was getting, and she put me in touch with Matt, and then my journey began, I suppose.
Yeah, and thanks for being so honest. I think a lot of people, especially on this process, it's very hard for me to get testimonials from people because people don't really want to talk about their poo or the fact that they might have done some drugs or, you know, flatulence and smelling the house out. But I remember one of the first calls, the first call that we had, and I knew that this was going to be a fun project. That was for sure. So just to kind of go down the path of how normal you are, in the way of, you know, we've all been there, we've all gone out for nights out, we've all been raving when we were younger, we've all had a good time. But I mean, you were even, you know, your work back in the day was pretty fit, right? Pretty active. You were a tree surgeon, right?
Yes, yeah, I was a tree surgeon for about 10-12 years, something like that. I think I started doing that when I was about 23, and I stopped doing that when I was in sort of my early to mid 30s due to a shoulder injury. So, you know, I've been fairly active most of my life.
Fairly active. I struggle with the flipping lawnmower. When she says fairly active, anybody who knows about being a tree surgeon, it's a joke. Those guys climb up and down fucking trees. They've got to throw the tree into the chipper, clean it all up. It's mental. But you'll hear her talk about her recovery later on. She had shoulder injury, big time, so she had to give up work. And then we went through a whole protocol since this video, and now she's doing push-ups, and we're looking about building her progression up from that. But she's got completely no shoulder pain anymore either because her gut is working properly. Oh, mate. Fair play. Do you know what I mean? But what's quite interesting about that is because, you know, some people can relate to just being fit and going to maybe CrossFit or going to High Rocks or going to running, whatever they do. But climbing up and down trees, lifting shit all day long, you know, you're not somebody who's weak-minded or weak in any stretch of the word, you know?
No, I've even before that, I used to work with horses, so I've always done something like, you know, fairly physical and quite physically demanding.
Cool. So tell me when the first part of your IBS started happening. How old were you? Can you remember the first flare up?
I think I was probably about 25 years old. I noticed.
Be a bit careful.
I remember several incidents that are a bit questionable, but I'd be like out with friends or out doing an activity or something like that, and then all of a sudden I'd really need to go to the toilet, and sometimes I'd make it and sometimes I wouldn't, unfortunately, which is not really a particularly good look at the 25-year-old girl. It's not great. It's pretty embarrassing. And
many people I deal with IBS know this very, very well, whether it be a full poo in your pants or whether it be a bit of fluid. It's super, super uncomfortable. Not that I've been through it myself, but it's a crazy world when this is what people have to deal with. And this is why I'm so passionate about this job, but keep listening.
Yeah, it happened on many occasions, basically.
But you were a 25-year-old tree surgeon, so you're one of the lads, you can get away with it.
Yeah, I was, but it was mostly if I was on a night out and I had my hair and makeup done, and then all of a sudden you shit your pants. It's not really a good look.
Amen to that. Cool. And then throughout the years, like the brain fog, the sleepless nights, the flatulence. Just kind of tell us, if you wouldn't mind, just tell us a little bit of the really bad times.
So I had insomnia for years, like years and years, and I was put on some quite heavy sort of sleeping medications and things like that. And I also, I mean, like any one of my friends and my poor boyfriend will testify that I have the most diabolical farts in the entire world. I mean, they can knock flies up a bucket of poo, these things. They are awful.
What a great saying! I'm going to take that. But she definitely still got the tree surgeon banter. But could you pinpoint anything that did it? Like, was it the drug taking? Was it the drinking? Was it actually food? You know, were you trying to find these different areas?
I think it was probably, so when I used to go raving, we used to do quite a lot of MDMA. And it was always on like an empty stomach, basically, because we'd have been going for 2 days already, and we'd be like, you know, just eating the last little bits of everything. And you know, I used to remember getting the most chronic like stomach aches and stuff like that, and really bad acid reflux. And I think I just completely destroyed like my stomach, basically, with I think it was probably MDMA, if I'm honest.
Yeah, okay, cool. And then over the years, so like you said, like obviously partying and stuff when you're younger is one thing, but then going into your 30s, you're a mum, you've got an amazing boyfriend as well, who now, you know, you guys work very hard on your business, but you also give yourselves a lot of time to do your fitness, do holidays, do social activities and things like that. How much did it impact your life? As far as, you know, because from leaving the tree surgery and having to deal with flatulence, having to deal with this brain fog, having to deal with all of that stuff, what was it like?
It was just incredibly frustrating, because when it came to for example, I was doing a lot of running, and I would find it nigh on impossible being able to fuel myself a long run without having all sorts of problems with like bloating and flatulence and the diarrhea and the like horrendous stomach cramps. That was probably one of the things that I used to find the hardest, was preparing for a long run. There was not many things that I could eat, because you know, having any sort of food in my stomach would make it incredibly uncomfortable. Another thing that I used to get an awful lot was when I used to run, I would like come up in like a rash all over my body, and it would itch so much. For the first 20-30 minutes of my run, I'd be there scratching my skin off of my body.
And I talk a lot about this, about supplementation, when it comes to people taking gels and people taking things they don't really understand. And, you know, yes, we need a certain amount of carbohydrates. Yes, we need to stay hydrated. But there are many, many options that you can have that don't include some packet from some company. And the thing is with Alex, you know, that was a massive flare up within her stomach, which we talk about in a second. But also she was taking on different powders, whether it be through protein, whether it be through amino acids, whether it be through whatever carbohydrate sources, and taking all of those out and getting her to understand the balance between the necessity of having carbohydrates, but then also understanding bioavailability. So you have to be able to break it down into your stomach. It has to go into your blood system, and then it has to be utilized everywhere, which made a big difference.
Body just trying to get over the intense itching that was going on. And you know, it was just very, very frustrating. And then when it came to like being in the gym, having the energy to lift weights and things like that, it was a constant cycle of not being able to fuel myself properly. Because one, I used to put on weight if I ate any more than 15 or 1600 calories a day, which anyone who works regularly knows, that's naff.
Now she eats around about 2,002 and a bit, and she dropped a load of weight crazily.
Full, like you need more food than that to be able to train properly, to have the energy. And it was just a constant cycle of, you know, not having enough energy to work out, not being able to lose weight, and then, like you say, when it came to like social events and stuff like that, dealing with like, you know, having a great big bloated stomach every time I wanted to go out anywhere, you know, having diarrhea all the time, being uncomfortable, and just, you know, it makes you feel rubbish a lot of the time. And it's just like a frustrating thing to deal with, and you don't know where to turn, because you read so many things on Google, and you're there trying and saying to yourself, oh, I'm going to try this, I'm going to try that, I'm going to try this, and you just get nowhere. You're chasing your tail the whole time, and it's just very, very frustrating.
And I think it's really interesting because obviously having a skin condition like that, and you probably didn't connect it that much with your IBS to start with. You probably just thought, you know, that I've got a skin condition as well as I'm shitting myself, which is all in all a pretty bad place to be, isn't it? You know, you've got no energy because you can't hold your toilet together, and then you're also scratching when you do finally get the energy to go and do something. Okay, cool. So it was pretty bad, to say the least.
Yeah. David is another testimonial that I had, which is a few videos before this on YouTube, so please do check that out as well. But just listen to that. Like, she struggled to get the energy to actually go and train. And then when she was able to go on train, she got irritated by her skin. Now, no PT or calories in and calories out thing is going to solve this. It's about knowing the problem from the beginning and identifying it and saying, shit, okay, cool. So they're all connected. And instead of taking a cream, instead of taking a monster, we actually went back to the base of the problem. We solved that first. Now she doesn't have to take the cream. Now she doesn't have to have the monster. Now she doesn't have to be tired or have eczema. Big one.
You know, it wasn't, you know, David, I think, takes the biscuit. But I mean, yours, as far as it's concerned, would have carried on for years. But then we had a conversation and we had a consultation, didn't we? So you phoned me up, I'll never forget. And you're panicking. You were like, you know, you're doing keto, you're doing all this low diet and everything else. And I've seen the pictures of your bloating. It was insane. Mm-hmm. You, like you said, you look 8 months pregnant. You would just blow up. So then, cool. Then we go through the process. Now, what I think is really important for people to realise is, you know, we've spoken about this before the call. I love transparency. You know, I'm not a magician. I'm just a nutritionist, and I'm not an influencer. You know, this is real life with somebody who's had a real problem and hunted everywhere. When we had our conversation, there was no sales technique, was there? It was, I want to discuss with you what the problem is. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. There was at no point did I feel like I was being pressured or in any way being told to do something that is like a bad crap thing to do. Not at any point did I feel like that.
And I think that's something I have a lot of calls with people that go for a cheaper option, or they go for a calorie controlled diet and all of that stuff, and it's
I just have to make a point on this. My point of what I was trying to say was, if you do try and invest in somebody that you haven't been referred to off of social media, they will always try and do this sales technique of making it cheaper or breaking it up into costings or whatever. Whereas when you're working with somebody like a true practitioner, it should be more about the problem. Can I solve it? Yes, cool. Well, I'm going to spend time with you. You're going to spend time on it. So I want your commitment, and I want to be able to go through that process with you. I'm not here trying to do the, Alex Hormozi's sales techniques and the best way of manipulating people. Has never been on my regiment.
It's fine. I'll leave you to it. But with yourself, so we started working together. We went through our consultation. You kind of like got over the first little bits and going through different probiotics and things like that. But it was very specified, and it was all for you, wasn't it?
Yes, yeah. And it was, you know, It was, in all fairness, it was the
Not too easy though. Don't AI it. Okay.
easiest diet that I have ever had to follow, because I wasn't starving to death and the food was delicious. It was, it's easy to cook. It's not like it's this massive long list of really weird things that you can't, get. It was the easiest thing that I've ever had to follow. And like I say, everything tastes really, really good because it's just natural, decent food. It's nothing weird.
And with the supplement side of things, because obviously IBS clients look for what's the next fad of supplements to have and things like that. But when we discussed your probiotic, and I mentioned to you about, you can't just go to Holland and Barrett and get a probiotic. It doesn't work like that. You have to be quite specific. And we've done it a couple of times now, haven't we, where we specified different probiotics for you, and they've reacted with you differently, right?
Yes, they have. Yeah, I definitely know.
And that's very true. So if you have worked with a nutritionist and trying to figure out what you think is right or whatever, and they say to you, just get a probiotic, and they haven't specified what, why, or if you ask them the question, why have you recommended this one, then just say no. 9 times out of 10, no. 8 times out of 10, 80% of probiotics are bollocks. With working in this space, it's like, if you go to your local football club or rugby club, they will specify, they will have the proper balls there. They will go through with you the right shoes to wear. And the same thing with weightlifting. There will be certain tape which is better, a weight belt which is better. There's the same thing. If you know your shit, then you're able to discuss it properly. A probiotic is not all created equal, that's for sure.
I definitely noticed the difference with the probiotics. I definitely did.
And then my witch techniques took over. So one thing's for sure, if you've got IBS, we should look into fasting.
Yeah.
Now, I've actually got a client at the moment, bless him, who's going through a 3-day fast, and he's really struggling. But we actually did one at the beginning, didn't we, with you? And it wasn't too bad, the 2 days, the first 2 days.
No, the first, I think, because I did a 72-hour fast.
Absolute animal. Went and she was working on a stall for her family, selling things, and she was on the 72-hour fast. Unbelievable. What a ledge.
When I was working at the New Forest show, the first 2 days I had no problem with it. It was that the last day was not particularly pleasant, but the benefits afterwards are just, they're worth a couple of days of feeling slightly comfortable.
Amen. And the thing is, the post fast, we were very specific, weren't we? We were very specific in finding the right foods for you and how they should be. It wasn't just like, start eating again, or take some chicken and you'll be fine.
No, it's the to be fair, that chicken broth that I break my fasts with, I make one of those at least once a week anyway, because they're just delicious and really, really.
And when we're talking about specifics, obviously she had irritation in her skin, so I wouldn't generally recommend just a standard broth. There'll be different things in there to be able to heal the stomach and stuff like that. But if you're on my Instagram, you'll see I talk about things like bone broth, and I talk about things like collagen and the utilization of a good product instead of buying it, which is just complete bullshit and can't ever really be utilized by your body. So I'm glad that she did that.
Tastes good, but also we're looking after, you understand the compounds in there now. You understand there's glutamine and collagen. There's all these wonderful things in there, which is good for you as well. Cool. Then, if you don't mind me saying, you had some bad news, right? You had some stressful news. You thought everything was fine. Everything was all going really, really well. And then you had some really, really horrible news, and things fucked up, and you completely relapsed, didn't you, really?
Yes, unfortunately, I was away with my boyfriend on holiday. We had Airbnb.
God, I tell you what, all this talk about food, give me 2 minutes. I'm just going to go and get myself a a little shake to go halfway through, so I can keep cognitively switched on. Maybe this will be up on my Instagram, and you can catch up with it as well. Okay, I'm back. No protein powder. Cacao, creatine, glutamine, lion's mane, some milk. Let's crack on.
All of our nice food, all the things that we were going to eat in there. Late one evening, we got a phone call from my son's father's wife, saying that my son's father had unfortunately had a heart attack quite suddenly and passed away. Me and my boyfriend were out drinking with another friend at that precise moment in time. We got the news we couldn't drive back that evening because we'd been drinking. So we woke up early the next morning, packed our entire house up, which incidentally had all of our nice food we were going to cook in there. We were obviously hungover. We had to drive back about 6-hour drive, and you know what it's like when you're hungover and you're hungry, you stop and you eat rubbish. So I did that, and yeah, it was my stomach just went wild with the stress and wild with the I think
it's something really important for us all to realize. When we are fixing something properly, holistically, we're letting the body heal itself. So just like if you cut yourself, you have a scab and it takes time. And if you keep pulling that scab off, you don't get anywhere and you end up with a massive scar. This is what I try to keep on explaining to Alex as we're going through the process, and all my other clients that I speak to. It is like you've cut yourself and we need to heal it properly. So this was absolutely awful for her to hear halfway through, a time away with her partner. So yes, she had stress, which, if we understand properly about the vagus nerve and about the fact that emotions do dictate a lot of things when it comes to our overall gut health, that was one thing. But then she went and stopped off at a service station and had a load of like sandwiches and stuff like that with seed oils in it and sodium chloride and lots of other things, which just completely fucked a bad situation and made it worse. So yeah, wasn't good.
I think it was the combination of stress and then eating a load of crap on the day that was stress, basically.
And this is something I explained to you about, IBS people should need to realise you've got basically like a cut in your stomach. And what you would do if you had a plaster, if you cut your hand, you put a plaster on it. Then what you want to do is you want to be able to create a scab on top of that. And then once you've got your scab, then you want to put some cream on it to be able to get rid of the scar, because that tissue is still there. And that's the easiest way that I can explain it for people to understand. And that is exactly what happened to you, right? You were going through, everything was great. Then you completely, stress is a horrible part in where it comes to, a brain gut axis. It really affects our digestive system, which I explained to you. And then, the obviously the shit food didn't help either. But then we had to start again, didn't we?
Yeah, it was pretty savage. I mean, like, just before that happened, I was flying, absolutely flying. Like, all of my weights were going up in the gym. I was, I was working out like twice a day, 6 days a week, and I had tons of energy. I was feeling on top of the world. And then when that happened, it was just, it was brutal, and it so bad as well. It was so bad. Like I could not keep any food in my stomach for like a really, really long time. It got really bad. I think I lost about 1.5 stone in weight or something like that, because I couldn't keep anything in, basically. It was bad.
But the best thing was, I think that, giving myself some credit here, is that I explained everything along the way. And if I hadn't have done that, and if I'd have just thrown things at you without giving you the science behind it, you probably would have felt, well, what's the fucking point? Because I've done all of this work and now I'm just going back to where I was.
I would have panicked. I think if I'd have had no guidance at that moment.
And this is something that is so important. if you're going to work with me or if you're going to work with somebody else with your IBS and really solve it, you need to make sure that that practitioner is talking to you about the science, the small intestine, the large intestine, understanding where that all of it happens, and understanding that neurology can dictate so much when it comes to the gut, and knowing that the process is so important. But it's not just about fixing the problem. You know, you've got to fix some of the habits to then be able to put in there for neurology, so your brain, but then also your energy and your recovery. And yeah, that's what was one of the proudest things about Alex, is the fact that she didn't give up. But I think really it was because of the foundation of education that I gave her through the process.
I would have, you know, I think I would. I was dying, I think, because you know it was horrendous. I mean, it was, you know, when you explained to me, you were like, you know, that analogy that you use with a scab, and then you've got to get the scab, and then you've got to get the scar. That's such a good way of explaining it, because it makes sense. And it's something I think that anyone could relate to and understand, to be fair.
And that's it. And then obviously after that horrible time, it just gave you a bit of time to yourself and get you a bit of time to kind of regroup, as it were, which is really needed in those trying times. And I appreciate you for sharing that. But then getting back into it just before Christmas, fucking Christmas is coming. So we were like, hammer down, let's make this as good as we can to get you back into the place where you needed to be. And how quickly did you bounce back?
I think it took from feeling like devastation to feeling really good. I think it was probably about 8 weeks or so. It didn't, you know, once it had, that was from the beginning of being really ill to being back to normal again, I think was about 8 weeks. And bearing in mind, I was savagely ill for 6 of those weeks.
And you had to go to hospital, didn't you? Remember?
Yeah, I had to go to hospital because it was just nothing was staying in. It was really bad. It was really bad.
And you phoned me every fucking day during that period, and obviously we discussed everything as best we could. But what was quite interesting, we went to the doctors, and the doctors told you were fine. There's nothing we can do.
Yeah.
And this is the thing, I don't want to be against doctors, because this is not the case at all. I'm dealing with a client at the moment who's coming after cancer, and doctors do an amazing job. But when it comes to understanding the GI tract, the gastrointestinal tract, they are very unsure. That's a nutritionist's job. It's not a dietitian's job, it's a nutritionist's job to understand all of those things and be able to explain it to the clients so they can go through things. And that's all we did, wasn't it? You know, you literally were praying for a probiotic. You were for an antibiotic. You were trying every fucker in the world just to give you an antibiotic, because I told you exactly what it was. We knew exactly what it was. We just needed to kill that bacteria off, and we knew how we're going to rebuild it because we've already done that before. All right?
Yeah, you know, I mean, doctors are really good at certain. There's 0 point in going to see them if you have IBS.
I'm not going to say there's 0 point, but there is a lower point. She had food poisoning. She had a bacteria in her stomach which we really needed to kill. So we looked into which antibiotic to get. And it was really funny, actually. She went through it for about 6 days or a week while she was waiting for her appointment. And then they said to her, no, you don't need an antibiotic, you're fine. So we ended up going through a different angle and getting one prescribed somewhere else. And the exact antibiotic we needed, she took it 3 days. And then about a day after, she was absolutely fine. Which then gave her the confidence to be able to go back into a gut healing cycle and get this all sorted. So yeah, I was really happy for that.
Yes, you know, I've learned that. Before I started seeing you, Matt, I went to the doctors on several occasions for various blood tests, because I mean, when I say I was starving and I couldn't lose any weight, I was literally starving. I was running, I was literally running on empty, and the scales would not shift. I thought I had a thyroid problem. I was like, what on earth is wrong with me? Like, you know, I've got to eat like horses that are half the size of me. I was just like, why is that? And it was, there was just, they didn't even say that there's any sort of correlation between like not being able to lose weight and IBS. I said, oh, I've got IBS to do with that, and they were like, oh no, it shouldn't do. And I'm like, they just, they do not know what needs to be done in care for.
And I think we can't cut them all with the same brush, but I think you're right. From your story, from David's story, I've dealt with hundreds of IBS clients now, and you've had biopsies, you've had antibiotics, you've had too many of this, that, and the other, and they're just not willing to go back to the beginning because they don't think that the client wants to put in any effort. And the thing is, with my practice, is the only reason I work with people one-on-one is because I ask a lot of you, but it's all very simple to do. You just got to go along step by step. Cool. Right, then from one drug to another, So
let me just explain that. So, like I said, I'm trying just to really give the medical profession as much as I can, as far as empathy. But what you don't know, don't teach, and what you don't know, don't practice. I've just dealt with a client recently who's about 130 kilos and was told that she had a thyroid problem. We've dropped 15 kilos off of her in about 2 weeks because she's heavily overweight. Was it 2 weeks? 3 weeks, and she went back to have another test done, and suddenly she has a better thyroid. And yes, it is to do with weight loss for sure, but it's not to do with a calorie restricted diet. She went to a nutritionist somewhere else who prescribed her 1,500 calories. Now this girl's 130 kilos. Insane. She had crazy headaches. She's so many different hormonal problems because of that, and it was just wrong. And it's wrong the way that people are dealt with sometimes, and that's what I think we're discussing here, really.
We went through some amazing work during Christmas, right? So your stomach was nails again, like back into good stuff. You cooked everything for Christmas Day, everything was good. But then you've also got a couple of injuries, haven't you? You've got a couple of, like, shoulder, like you said, you had to leave being a tree surgeon. You had bad knees because of your running, which will definitely be down to a vitamin and mineral deficiency because of the IBS.
Yeah.
So then we discussed peptides.
Yes, the BPC 157.
Yeah. And did I give you enough information about it?
Yes, you did. I felt quite comfortable with taking it. And then I went on. I did my own further research on it as well, because you were like, go and look into it, start researching this, and had a good old look into it, and it's made. I know that it's made a difference. So over the Christmas period, as my stomach was getting stronger, I had, a couple of nights when I was out with my girlfriends and stuff. And one night I remember everyone was like, oh, should we get a pizza? And I was like, oh no. I was like thinking, shit, it's going to mess me up. It's going to mess me up. And I was like, no, I think I could try it. And I think I had like 2 slices of pizza or something like that. And I was waiting for this big attic thing to happen. Does, and nothing happened. Nothing. Like, it was like a normal being eating 2 slices of pizza and nothing going catastrophic wrong, basically. And over the Christmas period, there were, a fair few times where I did eat some stuff that was slightly questionable and would have definitely have caused a
sausage rolls.
Yeah, those bloody things, they're horrible as well.
Just to hit on the peptides while we're still there, as a nutritionist, I'm not here to try and prescribe people peptides or any drugs of any kind. But what I am here to do is give information. And I think it was really interesting with Alex. Now I'm still working with her for a few different reasons. And her IBS is cleared up, her skin's cleared up, and now her shoulders are fine, and so is her knees. And, it's probably been about 8 months we've been working together now, 8-9 months. And it's incredible. She's got her life back. She ended up getting the flu, which is not ideal. But either way, you know, these sorts of things are being easily utilized, and you can make a big difference to your life. You just got to put in a bit of work, and the progressions are definitely there, and I'm just super proud of her.
But
I think I should have a red phone for you. So like it's just like panic mode. We've got frozen sausage rolls. Oh, it's Alex. Hi.
well, I was lucky. It didn't cause me any problem. I'm feeling like my stomach is becoming a lot stronger and a lot more bulletproof. And I know that it's from the months of work that you may have put into it, Matt. And it's also, you know, that BPC 157 just sealing the deal, I think.
And she said there, the work we put in together. I think that's really important to jump on, because it's a team effort with me. Give you the information, but it's about putting it in together. And that's why AI is great, and that's why calorie restricted diets are fine. But a practitioner who's gone through the amount of different years that I have with people, it's about finding those answers together, and knowing that the journey can be really special and so much fun, but also you can get the answers.
It's just, you know.
And that is exactly it. Like, it's a peptide that I did not medically give you any influence over at all. You know, I am not a doctor. I am not an influencer. I'm just a humble nutritionist who loves functional practicing. I work with doctors and I can get advice from doctors if I need that. But I am very, very comfortable to advise you to look into something, and for you to do your own research and everything else. And then obviously by doing that, you know, we've trusted ourselves within a process. And at the end of the day, we are also our own humans. And I think this is something that everybody needs to realize, is you don't need to just do what everybody else tells you to. You know, there is information out there, and you can build your own story. And I just, like, now you are an absolute pleasure. And I've ended up working with your mother-in-law, your boyfriend, and everything else. And all those people, it's been incredible. Maybe I'll get them in for an interview. But if you are looking at yourself now, 7 months ago, and you're watching this, what would you want to hear? What would you say?
I would have said to myself 7 months ago, you should have done this 2 years ago, 3 years ago. You should, like, you are questioning, you know, what your life would be like going on and on with IBS symptoms for ages. You should definitely do something about it sooner rather than later, because it gives you a higher lease of life. It makes everything so much better. You feel better, you look better, perform better, and it's a weight is lifted off of your shoulders, because you no longer have to worry about, quite frankly, let's face it, some really embarrassing that are, one, uncomfortable, and two, just bloody horrible, just not nice, not cool. And yeah, if a way out, which I can assure people that there is a way out of it, then just do it. Get on and do it, because the sooner you do it, the sooner it's done, and the better that you can be better soon, basically.
Because the IBS is cleared up, the skin, you've got no itching in your skin anymore, no rashes, no nothing of coming up at all. So we can say tick in the box.
Sleeping, and you know, I'm getting. I used to get anywhere between 4 and 1.5 hours sleep a night. I'm getting most of the time a solid 8 hours sleep every night now, and yeah, I feel the best. You know, I'm getting on a bit. I'm not 21 anymore, but I feel the best that I've felt in my entire life, I think.
Thanks, mate. Thank you very much for doing this testimonial. I know it's gone on a little bit, but I hope that anybody watching this knows that I'm not really looking for, and you know this, Alex, like, I don't work with groups of people. I work with individuals, and I really give a shit, because this is my profession, yes, but it's also a passion of mine. And I just thank you for going on, you know, being so fucking honest with all of this, because it is a shitty situation, excuse the pun. But yeah, thanks, mate, and I really appreciate this.
No, you're more than welcome, Matt. Like, you know, I think you're a top bloke. I honestly do. And thank you so much for the patience and all of your advice and support and everything that you've given me over the last 7 months. Amazing.
You're a legend. Cool. Thanks, mate.
Whew. Gives me goosebumps at the end of that. So just to conclude, you know, and when she's talking about the last bit then about sleep, IBS can affect your sleep. IBS can affect your skin, your brain, so many different things. And then to be told by some people that they've got the answers and stuff like that is great. But if you haven't found the answers and you're looking at this video and you're wanting to know more information, please do give me a shout. I have a process that I go through, and the first chat with me is completely and utterly free. So we can have a chat about your problems and how maybe we could put together a plan to be able to solve them. But let me just say it one more time. IBS is not for life. You can solve it. You just have to put the effort in. Much love, team.